Hello, today I'm gonna go through a setup of a service principal to call Power BI REST API. So I had a problem. I was trying to play around with the API to understand what's capable for, because I was very excited that with this REST API, there is a lot of possibilities that you can automate CI/CD and just have scripts running or infrastructure as a code. And then you can call the API. So the first difficulty that I have when I stumble across was I was using my username and password, but the problem is that Microsoft now doesn't allow a account not to have multi-factor authentication, and the solution is service principal. And I struggle a little bit on the documentation, and I didn't have much explanation here and there, but I just bump around because there's so many documentation in Microsoft that you get a bit lost. And I also didn't have like a good Python example. All the Python examples that I found on the internet was using when it was possible to use without the multi-factor authentication. And I didn't want to bypass or create a security rule to bypass the authentication by location. So I think the best solution is to use service principal, which is what Power BI recommends. I wanted to point out to a website of a data analyst that I've used. This is Data Unlock, and there's a good article here that he goes through on how to set up, and then I'm just pretty much doing this video to explain how to do it. So let me just now go back to my presentation and tell what I'm going to be talking today. I'm going to quickly explain what's a REST API if you already don't know. How does it work? How the Azure authentication and identity works. I'll play around quickly with the Power BI REST API, and then the main part of the video was setting up the service principal step by step. And then I have a Python script that I will demonstrate on how and call the API to do some activities like get the workspace names. If I have time, like they get users in group, and also I would like to do a demonstration of get refreshes and refresh data set as well. So firstly, a REST API. An API is just an abstraction of an application where you can talk to this application in an abstraction level. A REST API is an API that has got some standards on how you communicate with this application. Usually, this application is done via HTTP, but the REST API is usually an API where you would like either to do a GET request where you can get some resources, or you can also create resources, alter resources, usually used for databases or data intensive applications. So basically the way you communicate is like you send like a request, and the API receiving the request and your response, which is like a JSON file with data where you can use to do whatever you need. So the way it works in authentication in Azure, it's like a 4-step process. You first, obviously, you have to have a service principal set up. You send a authentication secret and saying who you are, and then that AD knows what services this principal within Azure have got access, and based on that information, you understand later when I set up, it will send back a token, and then with that token, the service principal will query the API and get a response, whatever is the response. So first, let's play around with the API for you guys to understand. Let me just pause the video because I need my phone to do the authentication. 1 second. If you go on the Power BI API reference, so you have here everything that the API does. There are some administrative tasks that you can do, but let's just do one, which is groups. That's workspaces in Power BI. So let's say I wanted to make a request to the API to get all my groups, which is this one. So let's try it. I think I have to log in a different user because this is my personal account. I have another tenant here. That's my Pedro Junqueira, my Azure account. I have several Azure accounts. Let me just go to a new window. And where is it? 1 second, guys. Just get the URL. Go back to this one. I'll sign in with my other account. That's the tenant where I have the Power BI set up. And my password. Sign in. I think they'll ask for the move, and that's the reason I wasn't able to do, because automatically, if you wanted to do programmatically, you cannot do multi-factor authentication. You have to have a human to do that. So okay, let's try it. So pretty much what API does is like you have like a named point, and then this is like a GET request. So this kind of playground sort of like emulates what would happen in reality if I just run that. So I'm get on my tenant. I've got 3 workspaces here. So I have a SQL test and SQL production. If you go to my Power BI, tenant is, yeah, I have those 3 workspaces. So you can see that it returned correctly. So let's set up the service principal. That's the whole objective of this video. So what you need to do is first, if you go on Power BI settings, admin portal, and then tenant settings, you go to the development, which is, I've got this message that's annoying. I don't want to upgrade, but it's kind of, where is the development? Yep, you go here, and this one needs to be enabled. Okay, so also I have a security group here that I'll just leave it as it is now. But if you don't have one security group, it's good to set up a security group where you're gonna put all your applications that are service principals. So here's what it says. You are enabling here allowing service principals to use Power BI API, and that's done in the Azure Active Directory by creating an app. If you don't know how to do it, and I'm just going to explain to you, but if you want to do it yourself, you just need to click here, learn more, and then that's going to take you the steps that I'm going to go through with you. So first thing, you have to log into your Azure account. So this is the Azure account of the same Azure account where your Power BI tenant is. So you go to the Active Directory, and first step, what you need to do, you have to create an Azure AD app. So the way we do it, you go here, go on app registration, new registration, and then I'm gonna call it Power BI automation, whatever you want to call it. So what account you want to open? Usually the default one is this one, accounts that just you're gonna use the API from the tenant, which is this one. There's another option to set up a redirect URI because we're not doing a web app, so we're just gonna put register. I think I'm gonna having a little bit of a problem here. Let me just with my video editor. So I'm just gonna move this around a bit, and then I'm gonna register. It's not happening. I hate this. Just if I bugger. This is so annoying. Let's try to do this. Yep. It created like in seconds. So once you create the app, two things you're going to use on your code, which one is the application ID and the directory tenant ID. I'm just going to copy this and paste on my Python code that I'm going to go through with you later. So I've created a config file here. This is the one that I did on the dry run. I'm just going to delete this, the secret, and also the tenant ID. So I'm just going to paste the new one, this app that I just created. I'm copying the client ID, which is that one, application ID, and the tenant ID, which is that one. I'm just going to go here, save. And lastly, which I think is the next tab, next step is to do a certificate, a secret. That's the like the password of the application. I go to certificates and secrets, and there are two methods like upload and create. This one's safer. You can have like a key or token where you can use key vault in Azure, but I'm just gonna use that one, which is easy for demonstration purposes. I'm just gonna call automation and add, and it's expiring 6 months. So once you create, make sure that you copy this value here, because that's only going to appear once, and I'm just going to paste that on my codes. When I demonstrate the code, I'm just going to zoom in. That's going to be easy for us to read. So back to the instructions. So step 2 is create an Azure Directory Security Group, which I already created. If I go on my Active Directory groups, I'm using this Power BI. What you have to do is you have to add your security principal to this group. If you go to members, and then you're gonna add member. I think I've called it Power BI something. Power BI automation, select. So now it's there, the members. Yeah, I've created the Azure Security Group. Now you have to go to Power BI, which is what we've done already. And then I put this Power BI Auto, which is the one that I already had, but you can just create one and then add your application there. And the last step is to add the service principal to the workspace. If I go to the Power BI and to my workspace, SQL workspace, I think, yeah, the development one, and I have to access. It's already here, so we just need to add. I've added as an admin. It needs to be at least as a member to allow to access. I think I don't have everything set up yet. There are 2 more steps to do. I need to allow this application to have access to Power BI, which is, go back to here, application registration, go to the application. I go to API permissions. As a default, when you create an application, it allows you to query the Microsoft API, the Graph API for Azure, but you need to add more additional permissions. In this case, it's Power BI service. There are 2 options. Because we are using service principal, you choose the option on the right and then click both tenant read all and tenant read and write all. So just add those permissions. And the last thing you have to do is to grant admin consent. Can you see that it's not granted yet for my tenant, pedrojunqueira.net? If I click here and yes, it will go green. So that's the first step that I've done, which is set up service principal step by step. I'm gonna pause the video and set up my video to just go through my code, where I'm gonna go to the details and run some experiments and show how the API works using Python. So we are all set now. Then just pause. All right, the second part of the video, I'd like to demonstrate my Python code. So it's a very simple script. I have here the script, which is called auth Power BI API.py. It's basically I'm just using JSON config parser. So requests in Microsoft authentication library. So I've organized in a folder where I have a config file init, where I've just posted, as I demonstrated previously, from the Azure portal. I'm just gonna go there. I think you remember from my application overview. So those numbers here are just based on my code here. And then the first part of the code, read these credentials from the config file so that I can use in the code. So basically I have few functions here. First functions is to get a token. I'm using the Microsoft authentication using this method of this class, and then that returns a token. Then I have a function to generate the header, and then with the header and the token I can have a function that calls the API and then gets the JSON. And then I have like a little program here where I use my functions, first generate the token, get the headers, make a call, and then I'm just gonna print the response. So that's gonna be the endpoint that the endpoint for this one is I'm currently the same endpoint that I did here when I did the demo. So that's the same endpoint here. That's the groups. So let's run the code and see if it's gonna work as expected. I'm just gonna show my terminal, and let's do it Python. Yeah, so can you see that I'm only getting the response of SQL workspace? I don't know if you remember before when I did the call of the API, I've got all the three, because when I authenticated here, I'm authenticated as my global admin. But on here, my service principal, it's only part of the development workspace. So therefore, the API is only going to return the resources that I'm part of. Which is this SQL, just this space. So going back to the presentation, we got the groups. Now I've uncommented my code here at the end. So let's get now users in group. I'm just I'll make the call to the API twice with the same token. Let's do it. So I've got first response was this one, which was my group, and then I called the API again, and then I got the two users that are part. This is the admin and the app itself, or the Power BI Auto, which is my security group. So if I go to my Power BI, I'm just gonna get this one. Here, Power BI. If you see on my my workspaces, that one, and then if I go access, I've got these two users, Power BI Auto admin and Pedro Junqueira, which is this guy. That's me. Okay, so now let's check a data set and then see just lists me all the refreshes, the history refresh for this data set. So the data set on this workspace is this one, Adventure Works Local. That's I have a Windows machine running a gateway, a local gateway, a personal gateway. And if I go on this data set settings, I have the refresh history. I've done twice, one on demand on a dry run that I did just now. Tonight, 8 o'clock. It's a little bit later today, maybe it's like 9:30. I did one on demand, which was manually, and I did one automatically. So let's just call the API and see this data, which is here. So this is the endpoint. I'm just passing my group ID and the dataset ID, and I just want to know the refreshes. I'm just going to do a get request. Let me just do it again. Save the code. Make sure that the chains are. There we go. So here's all my refreshes. So you see that the last two refreshes was done on the 8th of the 6th, and one was on demand and one was the via API. So let's now refresh my data set manually. Okay, let me just go to the data set, which is that one, and then I'm gonna just refresh it manually. Come on, where are you? That one. So the last refresh was here. Let's do another refresh now. Yeah, it's I know what it is. I'm just gonna pause the video because my Windows machine is closed, and I think the gateway is not available. This is the production one. Let me just gateway. Yeah, it's not available. I'm just gonna pause and okay, I fired up my Windows machine. Now the gateway should be available. Let me just refresh this. Let me see. Yeah, the gateway is available. Let's just now refresh the data set, which is that one. Let's try again. Refresh now. Now it looks like it's responding. If I go back to the settings, refresh history. Yeah, that one failed, but that one is complete. Yeah, it was done on demand. So let's see if that the API is getting that one. Let me see. Let me see, the last one was, yeah, this is the failed one, and that's the latest one, so it's API. But now let's try to refresh a data set, which is basically the same endpoint, but the difference is instead of being a get request is a post request. And then I did another function, which is basically the same function but now the method of the request is post. And if you go on the API, let me just get, oops, where is it? It's a bit, this screen is a bit small. Let me just, yeah. If I want to data sets here and refresh, no, get refresh history, refresh data set. Okay, it's a post request. It's a post request, and the response success is 202. So that's why on my code here, I wanted to print the status. If it prints a 202, which means that the request is successful. Let's try it. It takes a little while, and I didn't save the code. I'll try again. Yeah, 202. Let's go back to the portal. Is this one? Let's see. Refresh history. Yeah, it's complete, and it was done automatically. Let's do a final call on the API, but this time I'm just gonna comment this one out. I don't want to refresh it again. Save and run the code again, and there we go. The last refresh is this one, which was not this one. Yeah, it's this one, via API, and there was one demand, one failed, one demand, and one via the API. All right, I think that's it. If you have any questions, please comment below, and then hopefully that helps you to set up your Power BI and your automation on your Power BI API using Python. If you have any questions, you can put the comments below or send me an email, and then I'm very happy to, or connect me on LinkedIn, and I'm very happy to answer your questions. Thank you. Have a good day.